Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Radiant Central, and I'm your host Natasha St. Michael, and thank you so much for joining me. So yesterday I received an email from someone asking me about beans and legumes, and someone had told them that beans and legumes are full of empty calories and that they should avoid them. And they emailed me asking me, is this true? Should they avoid it in a healthy diet? And so I want to address this question, as well as I want to talk a bit more about beans and legumes and about how to have them in your diet if you're trying to lose weight. What are the tricks as to how you can include them in your diet but still lose weight, and also give some tips and suggestions for those that have a hard time perhaps digesting beans and legumes, how to prepare them in a way that's easier to digest, and also how to prepare them in a way that's easier to use when you're cooking. A lot of times people have a hard time using beans and legumes because of the soaking and then the cooking and all of that, and a lot of times they just don't have the time to be preparing all that. So I have a few suggestions with that as well. So starting off though with this person's question about, is beans and legumes just empty calories? No. Empty calories is things like candy bars and chips and ice cream. Like that stuff, that's empty calories. There's no nutrition in there, that's just junk. But beans and legumes don't even fit in that category, shouldn't even be in the same sentence with a candy bar. So no, I stand behind beans and legumes as part of a healthy diet 100%. They are full of nutrients, full of minerals, full of antioxidants. A lot of people are not aware of this, but beans and legumes some of them are even on like the top 20 list of antioxidant rich foods. They also have a lot of protein in them, and also carbohydrates for fuel, and they're just an excellent source of good nutrition, and they're very cheap, which is great. This is something that for anyone that's on a budget or not on a budget but wants to eat good food and not have to spend crazy amount of money, beans and legumes are great for that. So I have to say, I have beans and legumes in my diet. I would say more so in the past few years than ever. Before I didn't really eat that much, but once I got pregnant and when I had my daughter, I would say for the past 2 or 3 years, I've been eating, I would say beans and legumes have been a staple in my diet. We eat it at least once or twice a week. I'm constantly making foods with it just because I find it's very substantial. It gives me lasting energy, it's filling, it's comforting. I feel really good on it, and I just found that, especially when I was pregnant, just giving me the extra nutrients and having a substantial meal really made a difference, and I need it now as well. I find it's something that I really feel is nourishing, and I love it. So, and it's easy to make food for my husband, for my family using it, and everyone's happy. So it is definitely a staple in my diet. But I do want to give some tips and suggestions for anyone that's trying to lose weight and they're having a hard time losing weight and they eat beans and legumes. Because I do find the only downfall with beans and legumes is that it is very calorie dense. So perhaps with this person, when they were told by someone that they should be avoiding it because perhaps the person that was trying to explain things kind of worded it wrong, it's not that it's full of empty calories, it's that it's full of a lot of calories. And so if someone's trying to lose weight, you have to be very mindful of the portions and not to overdo it. And sometimes someone, let's say, that's on a vegan or vegetarian diet where they rely on beans and legumes for their protein, is that they might end up eating a lot of it, and maybe too much of it, that it's standing in the way of losing weight if they need to be losing weight. If someone's losing weight and they're eating beans and legumes, then they should just continue with it. Or if someone doesn't need to lose weight and they're eating it, continue doing that. But if you're trying to lose weight and you're not losing weight and you eat a lot of beans and legumes, my suggestion is not to cut them out, but to cut the portions in half and to be mindful of foods that contain beans and legumes, like dips, like things like hummus or black bean dip and things like that. Because I find with the dips, a lot of times people can overeat them and they're very calorie dense. So be mindful with the dips that you're eating if you're eating dips. And if you're making foods that contain beans and legumes, like you're making a big soup, or you're making a chili, or you're making a dal or something like that, my suggestion is whatever the recipe calls for, I would cut that portion in half, and I would then substitute it with more vegetables so that you're still making a substantial meal, but it has more vegetables and less beans and legumes. And that way you're filling yourself up and you're making a big dish, but it's just not as calorie dense as it would be if you're using like a bean-based meal. Okay, so just cut portions in half and add in more vegetables, and that will help if someone's trying to lose weight. Now, for those that are having a hard time digesting beans and legumes, a lot of people do have a hard time, and a lot of times they suggest to soak beans and legumes. I find in general, the benefit of soaking beans and legumes is more to remove the phytic acid. Some beans and legumes have phytic acid that is sort of like an anti-nutrient, that it's full of all these minerals and stuff, but there's this phytic acid that kind of blocks it from being absorbed by the body. And so the benefit of soaking beans and legumes is to get rid of that phytic acid so that you can really absorb as much nutrition from the food as possible. That's the benefit of it. I find in general, a lot of times, no matter what people do in preparing their beans and legumes, they're still running into issues of either irritable bowel syndrome or gas, things like that from the beans and legumes. And the one thing that I've seen that has helped the most, where people do notice a big difference, is actually when you're selecting beans and legumes, to select the beans and legumes that have a peel or a skin that you can remove. I find removing the skin from beans and legumes makes a huge difference, makes them so much easier to digest. So let's say you're having something like chickpeas. To cook them to a point where you actually see the chickpea separate from the skin, or it's easy to pop the pea out of the skin. And what you would do is you would separate the skin from the pea, and you would discard the skins. And you will notice that it's way easier to digest, and yeah, it makes a huge difference. So that's a lot of times with the larger beans and legumes, you can separate the skins from the actual bean. It's just sometimes you might need to cook them a little bit longer. When you notice that they kind of loosen from the skin, that's when you know that they're at a good point. I also recommend too is for anyone that has any digestive issues, and I would recommend in general, is to avoid the canned beans and legumes. A lot of times there's way too much salt added to them. There's other ingredients, hydrogenated oils, flavoring, MSG, like all sorts of weird stuff that's added in there to either preserve it or to make it taste a certain way. And you want to be eating the pure stuff and the fresh stuff. So my advice is, if you can, as much as possible, to avoid the canned stuff. If you ever do use the canned beans or legumes, always rinse them very well. And let's say you do have digestive issues and you do want to use a can of beans, my suggestion is rinse them really well. And if you can, continue cooking them a bit longer, so that fill a pot up with water and cook them for another 5 minutes and separate the skins from them, because that too will help you to digest it a bit better. But in general, I would say if you can, avoid the canned stuff as much as possible. Not only for the people that have digestive issues, but just everyone in general. I would suggest using the dried beans, soak them at least for 12 hours overnight, even up to 24 hours, and then cook them. Now, a lot of times people say to me, "But Natasha, I don't have time to be dealing with this stuff and I want to make a big pot of chili." My suggestion is that if you can find the time to actually soak a large amount at one time, cook a big amount of beans at one time, and then portion them up and freeze them in your freezer. You can keep them in the freezer, I would say, for at least 3 to 6 months. And so therefore, whenever you're making a big soup or a chili, you just grab some of the frozen, already cooked beans from your freezer and just throw them in. That's way better than using any kind of canned stuff. So that, to me, I find when people do that, they're just like, wow, that's easy, and you just use it as you need it. And I find by portioning it up makes a big difference. So all you would do is soak the beans, cook them, make sure after you cook them that you rinse them and you drain them really well, and then you freeze them and portion them into containers so that you don't need to defrost too much at one time. And they can be frozen, I would say, up to 6 months. So that's something definitely to try out. So these are my tips about beans and legumes. Definitely, I believe that they are a great addition to people's diet. Just make sure not to overeat them, especially if you're trying to lose weight. And I just want to end by mentioning that the next 10-day juice fasting program, it starts in a little bit over a week. So it starts Tuesday, December 2nd. If anyone's thinking about doing sort of an end of the year juice fast, get ready for the holidays and perhaps lose some weight before the holiday festivities begin, this is a great thing to do, because if you do a cleanse now and before the holidays start and before the parties start, all that, it'll help you stay on track with what you're going to be eating and how you're going to take care of yourself over the holidays, so you can stick on, I would say, be able to stick to taking much better care of yourself through the holiday season. So if you want to join us for the next 10-day juice fasting program, it starts next Tuesday, December 2nd. You can go to my website at radiantcentral.com, click on products, and you'll see a 10-day juice fasting program there. It's 10 days of doing a juice fast. You're drinking freshly pressed juice for 10 days straight. When you sign up for the program, you will get a small ebook that has all the guidelines for the juice fast. It also has a transition diet onto the juice fast and transitioning off. This is very, very important. You need to transition onto a fast and off of it properly. So it gives you all the guidelines as to what to be eating, everything, and also guidelines for the fast itself. And then once the juice fast starts, there's an online program that everyone gets to connect. There's a daily video specifically made for the juice fasting program to walk you through everything you need to know about doing the juice fast, the cleansing process, the detox symptoms, the cravings, the everything. And it's a great program, and it's great to get that group support, do it as a group, and a perfect way to end the year, I have to say. So if you want to join us, go to my website at radiantcentral.com, click on products, and you'll see a 10-day juice fasting program there. And everyone's welcome. Beginner juice fasters that never done a juice fast before, and someone that's done so many juice fasts, but they want to do it together as a group. This is a perfect program. All right, so have a super fabulous day, everyone, and I'll see you again soon.